I sometimes like to try and open my videos with a little joke or witticism, but on this one, the topic does it itself, because Giffords put out a study claiming that 1 in 15 Americans are survivors of mass shootings, which would equal more than 23 million survivors. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, except that person who's been taking my videos and putting them on TikTok. You're not welcome, and hopefully the multiple reports have taken you down, Liberty Dolls with a Z, and folks can find the real Liberty Doll TikTok at the username The Liberty Doll. For everyone else, please know that I will never ask you to contact me anywhere other than my official email address. I will never ask you for your personal information, and I have, at this point, never done a contest on my channel or anywhere else, so please don't respond to those people. Luckily, even though I had to take a detour on today's to-do list to try and take care of that, I had my Blackout coffee handy. Blackout is a Florida-based coffee roaster that has strong roots in supporting Second Amendment rights and traditional values. They support channels like mine and have dedicated partner roasts that raise money for GOA, FPC, and even the Second Amendment Foundation. So to get a cup of coffee that you can be proud of and help support the channel, go to blackoutcoffee.com/libertydoll, and as a bonus, you can use code LibertyDoll for a one-time 20% discount. Okay, so sorry for all of the administrative stuff taking up the beginning of the video. I know there's always a complainer about that in the comments. So let's go into this story that had me laughing and thinking no way that people fell for it. You see, according to Giffords, as I said in the intro, 1 in 15 adults in America are survivors of mass shootings. 1 in 15. Maybe you know 15 people, and by their statistics, one of them would have been in a mass shooting. It's a startling statistic, they say, yet it doesn't even include the number of Americans impacted by community violence, domestic violence, and suicides. Which, besides the claim being inaccurate, the community violence part might also not be accurate. Now, Giffords got hit with a community note which points out the absurdity of the claim, which would give us 17.5 million survivors, which is still a lot using old population data, and turned off the replies to everyone except for the accounts Giffords follows, which are, of course, the accounts that you would expect. Now, it's obvious that this post was created for propaganda purposes, but of course, I got curious as to where these numbers came from, because I do not like incomplete narratives and incomplete information. The numbers came from an article at healthday.com, which already sounds like a super reputable source. Now, their numbers came from an article on JAMA Network Open, which is a site for academic journal articles operated by the American Medical Association, called Direct Exposure to Mass Shootings Among U.S. Adults. The researchers, who are David Pyruz of UC Boulder, James Densley of the Metropolitan State University St. Paul, and Jillian Peterson from the Violence Prevention Project Research Center, used the Gun Violence Archive to come up with a target sample of people to survey, then sent out emails to folks matching that sample, then asked them to participate in a gun violence survey online. They took a sample of 10,000 people. It's a size that's often used for survey work and polls, so that isn't necessarily odd in and of itself. But it is odd in that there are already organizations that track U.S. population and crime statistics. In fact, Statista.com records the number of victims of mass shootings in the U.S. since 1982, where it records both fatalities and injuries. It uses the FBI definition of a single attack in a public place with 3 or more fatalities. That is the 2013 and on definition. Before 2013, before that, there had to be 4 or more fatalities. Which also affects, obviously, how these things are recorded, but that is another video. Now, their numbers don't tell us the number of people present for these events, but I doubt that it is 7% of the adult population, because that would be 23.8 million people. And thank you for Dan Wass over at Ammoland for doing that math for me. The folks on this channel know that that is not where my talents lie. Now, in this study, the definition of mass shooting is 4 or more people shot not killed, and the study defines exposure to even include hearing gunshots in any public place, including a neighborhood. And they count injuries during mass shootings as not necessarily being shot. It includes tripping, falling, getting trampled, anything that could have happened in the ripple effect of the event. As for presence, now this also means that it could include anyone on school grounds, anywhere on school grounds during such an event. It would include the people of Chicago on any given weekend. It would include the tens of thousands of people at a concert or sporting event, regardless if they were anywhere near where the actual incident took place. Pyruz himself says in the Health Day article, for example, 60 people were killed and 413 were wounded during the 2017 shooting at the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival in Vegas, but another 454 people were injured in the ensuing panic, trampled and knocked around as 22,000 concertgoers fled to safety. In addition, onlookers from surrounding hotels on the Las Vegas Strip witnessed the shooting. That translates to about 1 out of every 11,000 Americans who were on the scene of that shooting alone. Continue that to other events that have occurred around the country, and the numbers unfortunately add up. Now keep in mind, he is including all 22,000 people that were at that festival and all the people in the surrounding hotels that were safe as being exposed and in the presence of a mass shooting. He added, it's not a question of if one will occur in your community anymore, but when. Ooh. Now that, of course, sounds notably ominous, but isn't quite the real picture. Now, besides some of the obvious issues with this study that I have mentioned already, there are more. For example, while they said that there was no difference between socioeconomic status in people who were exposed versus not, most of their participants were also lower middle class and even lower, with nearly half the sample having a total family income of under $40,000 a year for a family of 2 or more. 20% of participants alone were below the poverty level with a total family income of $20,000 for 2 or more people. Now consider that the official poverty line for a family in the US as of 2023 was about $30,000, and about 11% of Americans fall into that category. So we have 11% of the general population being at poverty line or below, and almost half of the study participants being at that level or just barely above. So already we can tell that the participants in this study are not indicative of an actual sample of the United States. I know that that's getting into the weeds a little bit here, but moving on. By the numbers, male minority populations also had the highest rates of responding that they were present during a mass shooting, with Black people being the highest, being, by their data, 87% more likely to be exposed to a mass shooting. And Black males in particular were also more likely to say that they were injured in these mass shootings, which makes me question the study's operational definitions even more, because now it looks like folks are responding yes because they happen to be poor or underprivileged people living in bad neighborhoods, especially when you consider that neighborhood took the #1 location slot. What's also interesting and actually worthwhile here is that the next highest locations where these supposed mass shootings occurred that, people had been exposed to were bars and restaurants, schools, shopping outlets, and concerts. These accounted for 47% of the reports. And what do they all typically have in common? Being gun-free zones. Now, this is consistent with other data we've gotten saying that most mass shootings using FBI definitions, 94% to be exact, are in these gun-free zones. And what do studies like these, used by groups like Giffords, do? They advocate for disarming people and putting them in gun-free zones. Now, we already know from another recent study I covered that average law-abiding citizens are more likely to stop a shooting in a non-gun-free zone than cops. So then we get studies like these that are used for pure propaganda put out by these big money gun control groups, and then we put people in gun-free zones, and then that pumps up the numbers for these studies like these, which then advocate for more disarmament and more gun-free zones, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I am glad that at least on this one, Giffords got the community note, and no, in case you're wondering, don't even bother going and look. They didn't issue any kind of correction or apology or acknowledge the community note at all. But the problem with posting it and using that headline, and with Health Day using that headline, is that most people are not going to read the actual study. They're not going to know how to pick the data apart. They're not going to see the glaring issues with the study. They're going to take the headline and they're going to run with it. Anyways, that is it for this video. You guys know the drill for all of the algorithm things. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are new here. Ring that notification bell, drop a comment down below. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and happy shooting. And if I do post on TikTok, I'm going to have to figure out how to make all that work, because you know what? They don't like the G word. They don't like the shooting word. They don't like pretty much any words involving or related to the Second Amendment. So I don't even know how these people are getting past the censors, but somehow they are. I'm going to need to bring back that eggplant emoji.